All right, well, we need to start with where things ended because you got the sense, right, that your name had been thrown out by Rizzo over the course of that chaotic afternoon. So, how surprised were you by getting all the votes that you did? And who surprised you the most, I would say, out of those six votes?
Yeah, I mean, I think that ultimately I'm most surprised by Juwan Sage and Sophie Segretti. I knew that Soph, Savannah, and Rizzo were going to say were going to vote me out. That was not a question in my mind. I just didn't understand how we have an alliance of seven people, basically everyone who was on the Nate vote. We had said we would stick together. They turned on MC. And I'm at this point thinking, well, if they didn't get Rizzo's idol out this time, surely they'll be have the wherewithal to do it this time. And so it's hard when you like go into this thinking you're playing like everyone's thinking the same way as you. I knew that I wanted to take a shot. Like me and Rizzo were rivals from day one. And he won the battle. I won a couple battles in there with rewards and immunities in between, but he ultimately won the war. But you can see who the players are out there. You know who's being strategic. And Rizzo saw me as that strategic threat. And so that's why he was making up lies and embellishing things. But I just thought other people saw that too. So it wasn't I knew it was a chance I'd go home, but that's what we saw as the result.
Yeah, I'm really intrigued by that because obviously part of Rizzo's campaign, right, was this idea that were in the middle of everything. If you're loyal to everyone, you're loyal to
Yeah.
no one. And then we had these comments about like Alex is doing too much, Alex is messy. That came as a bit of a
Yeah.
surprise to me, given what we saw
Yeah.
in the edit. Was that a perception that was a surprise to you as well?
So the definition of being messy is being friends with everyone and having people like you. So that was my messy is that I just talked to everyone and everyone liked telling me things and being around me. And so because I wasn't sticking to a Hina side or an Uli side, and like I'd go have conversations with Rizzo and we'd hang out, and then I'd go have conversations with Christina. And so it's not that I was like spreading rumors about anything or playing this messy game. It's just that people didn't like how liked I was, I guess I could say. I'm not even trying to be conceited or anything, but I think that I would tell Rizzo, like I remember on the Nate vote, I like said to him one time on the beach, I was like, oh, like, are you sure you could trust Juwan and Sage? Me knowing that they were going to vote out Nate. And he's like, yeah, I know for sure. And so it's like, that was my way of like giving him a little heads up, like trying to give him an olive branch. And he didn't pick up on that. And then basically work to use that against me. And so that's the type of thing where it's like, I talked about Sophie Segretti, like, oh, is anyone else going to ever win an immunity challenge? Because she's always in contention. And he says, Alex wants you out, like that type of thing. And so he really was spinning every little thing I would say to him in a friendly way to my demise.
Well, I want to rewind a bit because, of course, you talk about, wanting to flush a public idol. Maybe it's
Yeah,
because you yourself had a public idol. I want to go back
exactly.
to those salad days of Kella and go back to that Jeremiah vote because there was a
Mhm.
lot to do in the edit, at least, about, okay, let's see if we can trick Alex into not playing his idol. You say as you get up, like, I was gonna not play this, but then something
Yeah.
came up. Was that true? Was there something in particular that you heard that made you feel like you had to play it? And then what was your reaction when you found out that Soph was actually on your side there?
Yeah, I went into tribal council prepared not to play my idol. And I was not going to play it, not going to play it. Nothing at tribal changed my mind. It was when Jeff walked back and I'm thinking, is like that's when you get paranoid, where you're like in those 10 seconds where you're kind of like, am I making the biggest mistake ever if I don't play this? Because Soph, I knew was she had told me that Jeremiah was going to vote for me. She basically was flustered at that point and trying to save herself. And so I felt like I could trust her. And I had made it clear over and over, I'm going to play my idol. I'm going to play my idol. And I think that she really believed me. And but ultimately it just came down to I couldn't do the Rizzo. I couldn't risk it. I just wanted to make it to the next day and thought I could find it tomorrow. And so really I wasn't gonna play it and then I just couldn't risk that.
Well, let's then fast forward to the two of you reuniting after a couple
Yeah.
swaps at the merge. And, you talk about wanting to work together as this block. And you talk about the fact, right, that you had sort of like gone your separate ways, made your separate camp
Yeah.
friends. Now you're reunited for the school year. So talk to me about that. Were you always going to, leave her in the dark in that moment? And then what was it like trying to do damage control after that?
Yeah, that was a funny moment. I mean, I think that I wanted to work with Soph. Like we built that trust. That was all genuine. And then I just saw how close she was with Savannah and Rizzo, and I knew that there wasn't any penetrating that. I'm not going to be at the bottom. I want to be able to have a group who supports me. And yeah, the Hina group was strong, but Christina and I had a really close relationship. Steven and I were building a really close relationship. And so I felt like, you know what, those three are always going to prioritize each other. And so let me just stick with these new relationships that I built. And I thought that Soph might be able to forgive me and that we could try and play this middle ground, but she was so jaded and burnt, and I knew there was no recovering from that. And she was pissed at me. And I remember Savannah even told me, she was like, "You really have to rebuild that relationship with Soph." And I'm kind of like, I know, like help me, please, because I did want to kind of be able to shift to their side at some point. And it just was never going to happen. So that's why I'm ultimately not surprised that she voted me out.
Well, I'm curious, let's say that either Rizzo goes out with Idol in pocket or he uses the Idol, Soph goes out to split the plan, ends up working. Were you planning to go to the end with any particular people at that moment, to your point about trying to remain friendly with all sort of factions that were going on?
Yeah, I mean, I think at that point I was so focused on making it to the next day where I felt like my relationships would continue to carry me. I think ultimately I had a really good relationship with Christina, and I wanted to basically, I knew that she had this idol. And so how was I going to use that information moving forward? That it could have benefited me. And I liked her personally. And so I wanted to go with her. I knew that Savannah and Rizzo were players, and so I wanted them gone as soon as possible. Uh, and I just wanted to be able to get to a space where I could win individual immunity challenges. So getting out people like Sophie Segretti at some point and Steven would have come my way too.
Yeah. So, talk to me a bit more about these Hina relationships because we saw like a smidge of it. You were already sort
Uh,
of becoming the middleman from that Kella 2.0, but who were you connecting and how and why were you doing so?
yeah, I think honestly, killing the chicken brought Steven and I together. And it
Trauma
was this was
bonding.
yeah, honestly. And I remember saying to him, I was like, well, my number one was Jake, and he's gone, and so I'm kind of open for business. And I thought that it was working. I think that he was still questioning me, which still is confusing to this day because I literally had nobody. I didn't have this solid group like other people, so I don't know why he would think I was lying. But I was working on that relationship, and then with Christina, I knew that me and her were good. We were so solid, and that she was never going to turn on me. And so those were really the two people from Hina that I had the best relationship with. And Juwan and Sage, we'd talk about playing the middle ground together, but like we're all just different people. And so I think that it was hard for us to click and get on the same page. And so that's why I was never really working with them per se.
You talk about the chicken. Were you also having chicken dreams? Were you haunted by the fowl that Steven was?
I was having chicken dreams being that I wanted more. I was ready to kill another one. So no, I know this sounds crazy. I was the best chicken I've ever had. Let's make that clear. But it was what we had to do in the moment. Like, yeah, it was so hard the first time, but by the second time, I was basically walking Savannah through it, and she was so excited to be a part of that. Where I was like, all right, let's keep doing this. And so. Yes, it was crazy and it was insane. I grew from it, but I was just ready to go. It's not anything I'll do in my normal life. I have the privilege of not having to do that, but being out there, easy.
Something that I'm intrigued to get your thoughts on, that a lot of fans have pointed out since your boot last night is, of course, the fact that the th first three jury members this season are all black. When I talked with MC last
Mhm.
week, she had told me about the fact that, she specifically wanted to pitch to Juwan, I don't want to get rid of you. I don't want to continue this trend. Was this something you were cognizant of? What was your reaction to this?
Yeah, I mean, this is a point where like this turns into real life. We were cognizant of it. We had conversations about it. Um, and I think ultimately it's up to each person whether they're choosing to play the game for themselves or something bigger. So I don't want to judge other people's decisions. It was hard. I mean, I think that you see basically, I don't know. I think part of Christina giving up the reward challenge was kind of just to look after Jawan. I mean, and so then for Jawan to vote out another black person, I don't know. I think online people are not taking too kindly to it. But I don't know. I don't want to sit here and be the one to say that he's wrong for it. Like everyone's in it to win for themselves, so do what you have to do. But it's hard not to acknowledge and see what's going on here. Do I think it's right? I mean, it's hard to see for me personally, but I don't know. To each their own.
I want to finish by talking about, of course, your political background, which you
Yes.
brought
Yeah.
into this. I'm curious, you spent 17 days in the game. How much do you think that background was able to help you at the end of the day when you got out of DC and into Fiji?
Yeah, I mean, I think I talk about it every 5 seconds on the show. I know people love that. But it was because my experience in DC was so applicable to the game. Being able to have information and know when to use it, being able to kind of get people on your side and work, between different groups of people. You have to come to some type of compromise. In my job, I have to be calm, cool, and collected and be able to adapt to a changing situation just like that. And I think that kept me level-headed in the game where I was never going to explode. I was always going to try and talk things out. And I think that was ultimately the problem because too, I was in a really good position, and Rizzo is probably the only person who saw that. And that's why he had to basically work to get me out. And so, hey, I think that if you're going on the show and you work in politics, you're going to make it to a point, but you have to at some point choose a side and break ties because the middle ground is a tough ground to go.
I'm curious, we saw Savannah last night reveal her sort of origin story, which she was hiding too. So, did you ever at any point debate revealing the fact that you were a communications director on Capitol Hill to anybody?
Yeah, I mean, I didn't think about it once because I thought that would send me immediately home. I think that I wanted people to know because I wanted people to know my true occupation. I told people eventually at Ponderosa, but at this point, it was just that would be icing on the cake for them when they already think Alex is friends with everyone. They're like, oh, well, clearly he might be manipulating us as well. So that was ne never a thought, Mike.
Well, last thing I want to ask is, how did your boss respond to this? Just
Yeah.
really quick, and especially invoking her name,
No,
in the premiere and everything.
she is talking about it to everyone she can on the Hill. She's watched every episode. She had votes late night votes last night, so she missed the episode and was furious. And so blame the House voting schedule. But she's been nothing but supportive, and it's been so awesome the political and Capitol Hill community kind of coming together and rallying around me. Especially when it's been such a hard time for federal workers. It's been great to kind of be this refreshing, exciting thing that people can look to each week instead of the negativeness of the news.
Well, listen, I'm glad that whenever we get the time to caucus together
Yeah.
to chat, it's always such a pleasure. And look, I don't think that you being friends with anybody came out of any sort of facsimile. I truly think just
Yeah.
getting to know you, it's born out of who you are. And I know you're very proud of what ended up happening, even if it didn't make you $1 million richer. So thank
Right.
you, Alex, for being so open, so friendly, so honest as you usually are about everything you got to do over 17 days.
Yeah, thank you, Mike. I mean, it's always great to talk to you, and it's fun to watch back and feel that support. So I appreciate it.
Of course, all the best to you and yours, man. I'm sure we'll be talking soon.